Anthony Davis is suddenly the hottest name on the NBA trade market, and the list of suitors is growing fast. The Pistons, Hawks, and Raptors were the first to poke around, but now even the Warriors are circling, desperate to stay relevant. But here's the problem. The Mavs took one look at Golden State's offer and basically said, you can keep Draymond Green. The Warriors need to find more assets or drag a third team into this mess because Dallas wants no part of Draymond's contract or his antics. Draymond has to be in the deal for the money to work, but let's be real, Dallas just laughed. They don't want a triple single podcaster with a history of on-court meltdowns and suspensions. The Mavs are out. Meanwhile, another team is coming hard for AD. This time, it's not just rumor. Marc Stein, Dallas's most plugged-in insider, when Stein talks, NBA front offices listen, says there's a legit contender in the mix. According to Stein, the Hawks are now the most aggressive team chasing Davis. We're less than 6 weeks from the trade deadline, and Atlanta is ready to go all in. Rumor has it, they'd pair another potential #1 pick with Cooper Flagg. But let's pause for a second. This is Anthony Davis we're talking about. The same AD who can change a series when he's actually on the court. Let's not forget, AD just got hurt for the millionth time this season. What are these front offices thinking? He's played just 14 healthy games out of 80. Sure, when he's right, he's a walking double-double, an elite rim protector, a legit game wrecker. He dropped 32 and 13 on Denver, 35 and 17 versus the Pelicans. But how much longer can teams keep pretending AD's body isn't made of glass? And now, surprise, he's injured again. That's groin injury number 13 in his career. At this point, what's one more, right? The real question, can Anthony Davis swing a playoff series? Absolutely. No one cares if he misses a dozen games in December. It's all about those 3 weeks in May and June. When he's locked in, AD is a defensive scheme unto himself, like Rudy Gobert, but with real offensive firepower. But here's the twist. All those injuries make AD cheaper than he should be. That's the whole point. You're not paying superstar prices for superstar talent. Just ask the Warriors, who are dreaming about Giannis but living in fantasy land. If Giannis ever hits the market, half the league would outbid Golden State. But AD? That's actually in play. So you don't trade for regular season wins. You trade for the hope that AD can give you 3 or 4 magical weeks next to Steph Curry in the playoffs. Let's get serious. As long as Steph is in a Warriors jersey, that front office owes it to him to go all in every single year. Anything less is malpractice. If Steph had fallen off, this would be easy, but he's 37 playing like he's 27. The Warriors have no choice. It's go for broke or fade into irrelevance. Sure, you could chase Daniel Gafford or Nick Claxton, but let's be honest, those aren't needle movers. And Dallas? Still not biting on Draymond, which means the Warriors have to get creative. It's complicated, but not impossible. The Pistons successfully healed Draymond's buddy. Don't they act like warriors? First, the Mavericks get Jonathan. I mean, take care, Silver. Jay Navy in a Warriors first gets Anthony Davis and Marcus Sasser. So there's Draymond Kuminga and 2 draft selections for Anthony Davis. Totally worth it. But the Mavs gain 2 young guys surrounding Cooper and JC, plus Jaden Ivey, a significant post-Steph choice. Detroit does this to add playoff toughness in Dre, who is from Michigan and a potential 2028 draft pick. This is not a simple transaction, but it works. However, the Hawks are being far more aggressive. In fact, we know what they are going to give up. The Crown Hawks' crowning achievement is their first-round pick from New Orleans. This might be #1 in a stacked 2026 draft. That pick has the potential to cement any deal. However, sources indicate that they will not even flip that thing for Giannis. That's how unassailable this pick is. Instead, it is reported that Atlanta is willing to give up Zachary Reese-Shea, since the Hawks' top pick in the draft 18 months ago has not progressed as expected. So the Hawks wish they had gotten Steph Castle at 1 or Alexander Matisse Musels. But Reese-Shea is still only 20 years old. The Mavs could be getting a lot of value here, but the Hawks despise the #1 pick. They just realized what was going on here. I mean, this is significant news that deserves more attention. I've been told that it has nothing to do with his unusual name. I got a young coin. Jalen Johnson in Russia. Russia. China. How would you say his name? Excuse me, I apologize. Rishi Zakaria works for the Human Rights Campaign. So Rosh Hashanah showed promise as a rookie, finishing second in Rookie of the Year. However, this year's average is only 11 points per game and 2 assists, indicating below average efficiency. But this is especially alarming because with Trae Young injured, Reese should be taking a step forward, not backward. In addition, the Hawks are looking at other players, and his draft class is breaking down. It's It's unfortunate, but he's only 20 years old. There is also a growing sense throughout the NBA that the Hawks are more willing to trade Trae Young than they have ever been. So Reed has a shot. Trae Young, well, it turns out that if a trade for Anthony Davis were to be made, Chris Haynes was told it would not include Trae Young. So the swap is AD and D'Angelo Russell for Chris. Zachary Jason Aisa Newell will be outsourced, with a switch scheduled for 2027. KP is expired. He may never play in a Mavs uniform. Okay, but the mascot reason is Shea and Newell, a current first-round choice and Cooper's college buddy. That choice is now the least protected of the Pels and Bucks' top 4 picks. But what about Trae Young? You feel bad for this youngster since the Mavericks do not want him, and neither does his own team as he is injured. But when Trae plays, it's terrible. The Hawks are just 2-8 this year, and as usual, poor defensively. In fact, since Trae's return, Atlanta has lost every game and given up 126 or more points every time, with career lows across the board. This is the absolute worst time to move Trae, yet they have no choice. He may become a free agent this summer and go for nothing, but if not, he exercises his $46 million player option and makes them far too pricey. Ownership would never allow such behavior. So who will trade for Trae Young at that price with all of his flaws? Actually, numerous teams might exist. Consider clubs like the Clippers, who need to be decent because they don't even control their own draft picks, so they have nothing to lose. If they include trade, the plan is to pair him with a visa. Bots took Kawhi and James Harden off the books to surround Trae and Zoo with defensive wing stoppers. Then gaze at Eclipse pictures. Oklahoma City and Philadelphia both own 4 years. Here are the trades. Hubert's years allowed Trae Cook to win around 4,550 games. At least you're not giving the Thunder any more top 3 picks. Milwaukee, on the other hand, is a potential trading partner. They do not own their draft picks, and Giannis might help the team. According to sources, they are willing to spend even more assets to encourage Giannis to stay, and even if he does depart, they will have Trae and Miles Turner to fall back on. And there are always the Kings. Since trading De'Aaron Fox to San Antonio, they've needed a point guard. But the point is, this may be a wild trade deadline, and I believe the Hawks will most likely acquire Anthony Davis. However, the Mavs do not hang up when Golden State calls. So what about LeBron James? Following all of the drama in Los Angeles, there is rumors of a LeBron trade, because it turns out that JJ Redick is frustrated. So what would a LeBron deal look like now that the King himself has threatened it a few months ago?